What's going on, MBL? Welcome to another episode of the Blitz Podcast. I'm your host, TFA, and as always, alongside me, I've got my co-host, JY. JY, how's it going tonight, man?
Oh, it's going great. Can't wait for another episode here.
Yeah, we have a lot going on around the MBL right now, as we're about halfway through Season 23 regular season, and that is headlined by a lot of quarterback controversy. We've got controversy all over the league right now, so we're definitely going to touch on that in this episode. And then later, we're going to be joined by one of our draft experts, Gub, as he's going to release his first top 10 mock draft of this season. But before we get to either of those, JY, I really want to touch on some top stories that are going on around the league right now. First thing I want to touch on this week is the major news that just came out of Washington. They signed Aaron Rodgers this offseason, hoping that he would be able to get them to the Super Bowl and to a Super Bowl victory. Aaron Rodgers is injured. Now, JY, he's going to be out for about 8 weeks now. This NFC East is looking like it's one of the toughest divisions in the MBL right now. The Skins are currently at the top of the division. How big of an injury is this, not only for the Redskins, but the entire NFC East?
Well, I don't think it's as big as you would hope it would be. They won fairly easy last year without Aaron Rodgers. Adding him to it was just kind of the cherry on top of the sundae. But Aaron Rodgers wasn't really tearing this season up by any means. I mean, he was sacked 10 times. He's thrown, a handful of picks compared to the handful of touchdowns. He's not lighting it up by any means. But yeah, it's still going to hurt a little bit, but I think in the long run, they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I would agree there. He's not having a great season, but it'll be interesting to see how the backup can do, stepping in. I'm not sure how many reps this guy has had, but it'll be interesting to see how the season continues to play out for the Redskins. Do you think that they're still one of the favorites in the NFC despite this injury?
Well, when you have a backup quarterback, I think his name is Peter Heap. He was drafted in the 7th round. He's going on his 2nd year. I mean, he's obviously a clipboard warrior. Well, now he is the starting quarterback and has to manage games. He just has to try not to lose the game for the team, because this team should be basing all of their stuff on their running game anyway. So, that's where I think they should be.
Yeah, the Redskins are a very good running team. I like the word you use there, clipboard warrior. 7th round pick, that's definitely what this guy is. Another big storyline is the emergence right now of the running game in Detroit. All of a sudden, it was all about Bomber can't run, he can't do this, can't do that, but he's got quite the passing attack. But Jeremy Hill, they brought him in a couple seasons ago thinking that he would be the answer. He wasn't, so they turned to free agent pickup Bubba Dillon. I believe they signed him in the middle of the year this year. He was a 5th round draft pick, back in season 21 for the Texans. He was signed by the Lions here a few weeks ago, and this guy only had 3 touchdowns in his career entering the season after getting his first start in week 4 for the Lions. He already has 7 rushing touchdowns on the season. He's been lighting it up. He was just on the MBL Live game, did great on the MBL Live game, won Player of the Week honors. Now, JY, we already know about the dominance of this passing game for the Lions. I've already talked about it. But do you think that the addition of Dillon is enough to get this team back to the Super Bowl this season?
It's going to have to be. I mean, everybody knows that when you go up against these Detroit Lions, that you can sit in nickel, you can sit in quarter, you can literally put 2 defensive linemen, 1 linebacker, and just do the rest D-backs, because, their strength is passing. Now with the addition of Dillon, and guys can't do it, and I think they're still so afraid of Stafford throwing over the top and just picking them apart that they're willing to just let this kid run and run and run until they get right around the 20-yard line, and then they start, hampering down the defense to try to stop him.
Yeah, and in past seasons, a couple seasons ago, we saw the emergence of Le'Veon Alston. Do you think that Dillon's going to have that big of an impact for the Lions? And where do you think that he ranks currently among the up-and-coming running backs of the MBL?
Well, he's one of the hottest. I don't know, what else I can say about it. I don't think Bomber has faced a truly dominant run defense yet, but time will tell. I mean, obviously with Alston, he came out of the gates. He had a great MVP season. Then he fell totally off the map for all intents and purposes. But Bubba Dillon is coming into a great team. I mean, everybody is afraid of the pass, which leaves huge running lanes and smaller players out on the field for him to run over.
Yeah, if Bomber can figure out how to run and pass the ball every single game, I don't see how anybody's going to beat the Lions in the NFC this year. I just think that's going to be an unstoppable offense. So now let's jump over to one of the biggest storylines on the season here, and that's going to be our quarterback controversy segment. JY, what do you think so far about all these quarterback controversies going around the league this season? I mean, there's so many of them to choose from, whether it's rookie quarterbacks, but we've got three main controversies that we want to talk about. What do you think about these quarterback controversies?
It's a league of what have you done for me lately. I mean, if you go out and you have a bad game, owners and coaches are they're ready to just throw in the next guy and see if they can create a spark and get some offense. And if that doesn't work, you flip-flop and you go back and forth. And instead of just sticking with one guy and letting him play through it, a lot of these quarterbacks now are looking over their shoulder like, who's next? Who's the next up-and-coming quarterback?
Yeah, and the first one I want to touch on this week is going to be probably the most talked about controversy. This one spans all the way back to last year. If you remember in the Super Bowl, Marcus Mariota got the start. Tyrod Taylor was benched after getting them all the way to the Super Bowl. So this is a really, really important controversy. We've been talking about it all year so far. I know they touched on it in the Commissioner's Corner podcast. So Mariota got hurt early in the year last year. Taylor came in, managed to get this team all the way to the Super Bowl, and then he was rewarded with getting benched in the Super Bowl loss to the Cowboys. This season so far, the Titans started off with Mariota. They went 3-2 at the start. They switched to Taylor halfway through week 6, and they've stated that Taylor is going to start the rest of the season. Now, JY, we have the stats on the screen here through the first 7 weeks, but it does not show that Taylor had a 4-interception game in his first start of the year in week 8. What's going on in Tennessee, man?
Indecisiveness. I mean, you have two average quarterbacks. You don't have a really great quarterback and then a backup. You have two guys that are very equal in talent, very equal in skill set. And right now, with the stats on the screen, yeah, Tyrod's got a little bit better QBR, but everything else, I mean, their yardage average is both 12.8. So I mean, they're throwing the exact same style of passes.
Yeah, and do you think that they're going to stick with Taylor here for the rest of the season, or do you see them switching back to whoever the hot hand is? Because I find it hard to believe that a guy this indecisive with his quarterbacks up until this point is going to commit to Taylor for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any commitment to anybody. I think if you go out and you have a 2-interception game, maybe even a 3-interception game, you might as well grab the clipboard on your way to the bench because that's where you're going to be sitting the next week.
Yeah, and this is the defending AFC champion here that we're talking about. This isn't, a team that isn't quite getting it done. This is a team that just made the Super Bowl last year. Do you think that they're going to be able to make it back to the playoffs despite this inconsistency from the quarterback position?
I think they have a chance. I mean, it's the MBL, anything can happen, but I think in order for you to rise to the top, you have to get a quarterback out there, you have to get a rhythm with him, and you have to let him get chemistry with the wide receivers.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't think we've ever seen a scenario in which, two quarterbacks got a team to the Super Bowl. It always seems to be that one quarterback, whether it's Big Ben, whether it's Matthew Stafford. It doesn't matter who it's been in the past. We've always had that one guy that led the team from start to finish. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to make it back and who the quarterback for this team is going to be going forward. Another major controversy is the one happening. It's my own team. This is Jacksonville Jaguars, and that's between Taylor Tercero and Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, at the start of the season, there was a lot of buzz around the chat and why I would ever start Garoppolo over Tercero. But after I started him in week 1, I saw his struggles. I switched to Jimmy G and decided to roll with him. The road hasn't been very easy. We currently sit at 1-6. We're having a rough year. But we're coming out of our bye week. We got a lot of work to do, and our quarterback situation definitely hasn't become any clearer. Jimmy G remains in control right now. But JY, seeing as this is my team, I'm going to switch it over to you. Do you have any questions about this quarterback controversy that you want to ask me?
Yeah, I know you inherited Tercero, and you signed the elder statesman Garoppolo in the offseason. What was it about Tercero that you weren't pleased with that made you go out and sign a veteran like Garoppolo?
Well, I actually already had Garoppolo there too. They were both on the team. But I think my biggest flaw with Tercero so far, if you look at their attributes, I mean, they're virtually the same player, same type of arm strength, same type of accuracy. The only difference really is their age. So I thought, Tercero's probably going to be the guy I'm going to have to go with moving forward. But he just doesn't have the arm motion and the throwing speed that I would really like from a quarterback. He's a little bit lethargic getting the ball out of his hand. He really struggles with pressure of any kind. I mean, if there's any pressure at all, he can very, very rarely get the ball off. So, that's why I decided to go with Jimmy G so far. But, time's going to tell which two of these quarterbacks is going to be the quarterback to go with.
And time actually leads me into my next question for you. How long is Jimmy G going to stay your quarterback, and does he have a short leash?
He does have a short leash. Tercero hasn't played well when he's been in. Jimmy G's at least shown that he can get it done. That MBL live game is a testament to that. He won player of the game. He played really well for me, and he showed signs that he can win games for us. So I think heading forward, I think the rest of the season we're going to commit fully to Jimmy G. Garoppolo is going to be the guy heading forward. Even if he struggles a little bit, I think we're still going to hand him the reins until the end of the season. But this quarterback position is definitely a position that we need to address this offseason. It's going to be one of our main needs. And with a weak quarterback draft from what I've seen so far, I'm not really sure where that new quarterback is going to come from.
And that's what I was going to ask you here to wrap it up. Is there a third option that you're looking into, or are you just kind of picking between A and B here?
Yeah, right now it's between A and B. I think once we get to the offseason, we'll see how much money we've got to spend, see if we can bring in maybe a veteran quarterback, maybe got to be a gap guy for a year. And we'll see how these guys finish the year. One of them could light it up and show me something where they might have to start. I might try to put some more weapons around them to make it a little bit easier on them throwing the ball. But we just got to make better decisions over here in Jacksonville. So our third and final quarterback controversy this week is going to be with the Panthers. They benched rookie QB Zach Argus for Matt Ryan. They signed Matty Ice. They were unsure of the quarterback, that they would turn to going forward. Argus only has 6 touchdowns to go along with 12 interceptions on the season. These turnovers are a major reason why this team is 2-5. This was a team that was fighting for playoff spots and fighting to be one of the better teams in the NFC just a couple seasons ago. And all of a sudden, they're 2-5. They've got some quarterback controversy going on. Matt Ryan, he came in during the Panthers Week 6 game. He looked really, really good. If you can say that for a veteran quarterback. He didn't really turn the ball over a whole lot. He kept control of the ball. He made some good passes. This is a 2-5 team up until this point. It looks like Ryan might be their starter as the season progresses. Now, JY, do you think that if Matt Ryan starts, that this team can turn their season around and string together a few wins?
Well, I have a question for the Panthers owner, and that's why now? Why did you let him sit out there for almost a whole half a season and then decide to go to Matt Ryan? It should have been the opposite direction. Let your rookie quarterback hold the clipboard, learn the playbook, get out there, see the reads, learn from a really good veteran quarterback in Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I thought that too. You signed Matt Ryan. I didn't really see a whole lot from Argus before the season or coming out of the draft that showed me that he was going to be the guy going forward. I thought for sure it'd be Matt Ryan's job, at least for this season, get Argus some experience, teach him a little bit behind Matt Ryan, and then throw him in there next season. Do you think that the Panthers see Argus as their quarterback of the future? Because I know they were very high at him after the draft.
They better. I mean, they drafted him in the first round, and now you kind of pulled the confidence rug out from underneath him by putting in Matt Ryan. If you're going to spend a first-round pick on a quarterback, you have to be willing to ride that quarterback, good or bad, get his lumps, let him learn from experience, or you should have started Matt Ryan and let Argus, learn from watching a savvy veteran.
Yeah, and that's what it is. They jumped a little bit. I think they reached a little bit to get Argus, but this was a very, very quarterback-heavy draft, as everybody saw. They all went really, really quick. So any team that needed a quarterback needed to get one, regardless of where they were. So I'm not sure if Argus is going to be their quarterback of the future, but I do think that the Panthers truly believe that this guy has what it takes to be that. So we'll see, how these quarterback controversies play out over the next few weeks and going into our next episode. A lot of controversy. We'll continue to track these stories as the season goes on and as more develop. Now I want to switch our focus over for this upcoming draft as Gov is going to premiere our first top 10 mock draft of season 23. I've got Gub here on the line. How you doing tonight, Gub?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm not too bad. I'm really excited to get this first top 10 mock draft out from you. Now, I noticed earlier in the chat that you and Doughboy were already going at it in your first top 10 mock draft. I have to say, for a so-called draft guru, your last draft was a little bit weak. So what do you have to say to Doughboy and all those Team Doe fans out there before you release your first mock draft?
There's not much to say. Just look at the top 10 and weep. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I was a big Team Gub guy last year. Hashtag Team Gub. We'll be excited to get your first mock draft out, and we'll be excited to see kind of the feedback, you know, who people are going with, whether you're going Team Gub or Team Doe. So without further ado, tell me how your top 10 prospects are shaping up this season.
Now, at the top of the board, you start out with wide receiver Patrick Amy. Should be on the top 10 of anybody's board. Doe, you included. If you don't, I don't know what you're doing. You want to look for comparison. Look no further than Trey Hackett in Minnesota, Diller Lloyd and Ben Gilbert, that tandem in Baltimore. It's a good comparison. A lot of scouts excited to see this guy run at the combine. If he runs well, guaranteed first pick. But I still think, even with the 4.5, I still think he's worth the number 1 pick. At number 2, I got Aaron Callaway. At 3, I got Iran Lynn. Tough decision. You can almost flip them. We're real close as far as covering skills. I went with the taller, rangier guy in Aaron Callaway. I believe he's 6'1", 6'2". So that's why I got him at 2. Iran Lynn at 3. At 4, I got middle linebacker Devon Hayward. The outside linebacker spots are real weak. The linebacker class is not very good. The middle linebacker class is good. And out of that group, Devon Hayward is the best one out of those. At 5, DeLance Virgil, wide receiver. If he would have came out last year, he would have been in the discussion. Be the number 1 receiver taken with Cortez Boger. But he didn't, and Patrick Amy he's got to be a consensus number 1. So that's why I got him as the second best receiver in this draft. At number 5 on my board. At 6, I got defensive tackle Darren Paysinger. The ends this year, kind of like the outside linebackers, they're not very good. There are some good defensive tackles in this draft. There's 3 or 4 of them that I've seen. Darren Paysinger is the best one out of that bunch. He's the best defensive lineman in this draft. Very good at rushing the passer. That's something that you don't always see a lot, especially at the defensive tackle position, is somebody being able to get after the passer. At 7, I got free safety James Bingham. Lately, you've been seeing a lot of free safeties win the Heisman. He's going to be in the running. This guy's going to be in the running to win the Heisman. He's the best safety on the board. That's why I got him at 7. At 8, I got wide receiver Vaughn Crockett. Real solid guy. Good route runner, good hands. Enough to put him in the top 10. We'll see how he runs. He could slide a little bit. At 9, I got cornerback DeMarcus Poteet. He's kind of in that second, echelon behind Aaron Callaway and Iran Lynn. Those dudes are, the top guys. DeMarcus Poteet leads the next group of corners. I got him at 9. And at 10, I threw in a lineman, Datarius McKelvin. He's the best lineman in this draft, so I figured why not throw one in there, at 10, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of talk, too, about the linemen in this draft, especially the offensive linemen. I've heard a lot of talk about it's a very deep offensive lineman class, so I'm not really surprised to see an offensive lineman here in your top 10. First major thing I noticed about this top 10, though, is I don't see a quarterback. We're fresh off of a draft that included 3 quarterbacks being selected in the top 3 picks and 4 in the top 5. We just got done talking about a lot of quarterback controversy around the league. Is it safe to say that if you're looking for a quarterback this offseason, that you're going to have to do it in free agency and not the draft?
If you're looking for a starter, yes. If you're looking for somebody to come in right away, take your team to that next level, I don't see one of those in this draft. So I would lean towards free agency. If you're, towards the end of the first round, you're looking for somebody that, could possibly replace somebody in a couple of years, then yeah, I could see one going in the first round, maybe 2. You got Hunter Paulson, you got Alvarez Bobo. Those are the top 2 quarterbacks. But if you're looking for somebody to plug in right away and could take your team to that next level, it's going to be free agency. I don't see one in this draft that's going to help you out.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I know you and I were talking earlier. We saw that there was a guy in the news at the quarterback position, was projected to be the top quarterback taken in this next draft. And, he decided to go a different route and not actually come out and not actually try to get in to the league. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the rest of these quarterbacks play out. 6 of your top 10 prospects right now, though, are currently either wide receivers or cornerbacks. Do you think that these are the two deepest positions in the draft?
Yeah, no doubt about it. You could say offensive line. You know, that's 5 different positions though. On the line, wide receiver and cornerback is definitely the deepest part in this draft. The deepest positions.
Yeah, and I'm with you on Patrick Amy. I see that guy's size and what his attributes can potentially be. He's a very enticing guy. I wouldn't have him anywhere but number 1. It's going to be interesting to see as the season progresses and more comes out about him. If we can learn a little bit more about him. So we've talked about the wide receivers and the cornerbacks and the quarterbacks and a little bit of the offensive line. Which position this season do you think has the least amount of depth and is the weakest position in this draft?
Yeah, outside linebackers, without a doubt. I mean, you could make an argument. I'll listen to you if you're telling me defensive ends. But outside linebackers, especially after the crop that came out last year, it definitely took a hit. I was talking to you about it earlier. If you're looking for an outside linebacker, somebody to get after the quarterback, or even if you're playing a 4-3, this isn't really the draft to do it. It's almost kind of in that position of, the quarterback. You're better off looking in free agency. You might be able to find a couple guys, in the later rounds. But if you're looking for that impact guy, free agency probably going to be your best bet as far as the outside linebackers.
Yeah, so by the sounds of it, it looks like it's kind of a complete turnaround from last year. Last year was very quarterback heavy. We had a lot of outside linebackers, go in that first round. A lot of guys with potential, and it looks like they kind of flipped the script this year. And we've got a lot of guys at the other skill positions outside of those. So one final question for you, Gub. This wide receiver, Patrick Amy, we've mentioned him a lot of times here. You have him number 1 overall. I have him number 1 overall. I'm sure Doe's got him somewhere up there. If he doesn't have him number 1 overall, that just tells you why I'm Team Gub. He's gaining a lot of steam around the league. The hype surrounding this guy is massive. Is it way too early to tell, but have you seen anything from this guy so far that shows you that he has the potential to be an MBL Hall of Famer, or is it just too early to tell?
Absolutely. I mean, he's 6'5", and like I said, it's going to come down to his combine for maybe a couple teams, but I don't care if it's me, Bombers would take him at 1. This guy has all the tools. His catch radius is unbelievable. At the combine, if he's under 4.5, which I highly think he will be, he is going to be a consensus number 1 pick. He's got all the tools to be an MBL Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and from what I've been seeing from this guy, it looks like he has that Odell Beckham-like playmaking ability. The big catch ability that you're really looking for. Can go up, can get the ball wherever it is thrown. So it's going to be interesting to see how this year's draft comes and see what we get for a little bit more news on this Patrick Amy guy. Gub, it's really always a pleasure to have you on here. I love having you on here. You and Doe both do a great job with your top 10 mock drafts. So I really look forward to seeing how you scout going forward. So thanks for coming on the show today, man.
Oh, I appreciate having me.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you on here again soon. Of course, we always have Gub and Doe debating it out at the end of the year for our pre-draft special, so look forward to that. We're probably going to have both Gub and Doe on the show a couple more times before that happens, though. That is going to do it for this episode of the Blitz Podcast. Join us next time as we'll have Doughboy here to discuss what he thinks for the upcoming draft. And stay tuned because we might have another special guest join us for his first ever appearance on the Blitz Podcast. I'm not going to release who that is, so you'll have to tune in a couple weeks. Make sure to tune in next week, too, to the Commissioner's Corner podcast. I know that Bomber and Lip are going to be over there continuing to track these quarterback controversies. And again with us in 2 weeks is I'm going to be back with my gang of misfits to discuss everything and anything MBL. As always, I'm your host, TFA.